Think of all the moments you've whispered sorry without thinking. Maybe you apologize for speaking up, or even for taking up space. It's a habit that gnaws at your confidence, leaving a trace of doubt every time. The Stoics knew something about breaking habits of self-doubt, offering tools to reclaim confidence and quiet the need for constant apology. These aren't platitudes, they're challenges, each meant to push you toward a deeper, quiet power within yourself. Let's dive into 8 Stoic tools that will help you break free from over-apologizing, allowing you to carry yourself with purpose, unapologetically. So start with our first lesson, which is the art of expecting nothing. Imagine holding the door open for someone who doesn't thank you. Your first instinct might be to apologize, as if you're somehow responsible for their lack of response. The Stoic Seneca observed, "A wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be, without wishing for what he has not." This includes recognition. Expecting nothing in return preserves your self-worth and shields you from the disappointment of unmet expectations. Practicing this is like building a muscle. It's challenging at first, especially if you've been conditioned to seek approval. Instead of waiting for thanks or acknowledgement, focus on the action itself, acting from your values rather than from a need for validation. Initially, this may feel empty, as if your efforts lack meaning without acknowledgement. But with each interaction, you'll find a quiet strength in acting for its own sake. Gradually, you realize that the worth of your actions isn't measured by how others respond but by your intention. Over time, this self-assuredness becomes a foundation of strength. You no longer feel compelled to apologize for another's reaction or lack thereof. This freedom comes from within, knowing that your actions align with your values. Embracing this perspective allows you to give freely, without expectation or apology. Soon, you'll find that you don't need others' responses to define your worth. Your self-respect grows, becoming a quiet, steady presence that doesn't demand acknowledgement. This is the art of expecting nothing, a quiet liberation from the need to say, "I'm sorry." Second, standing still in the tension. Picture this. You rush into a room late, expecting critical eyes on you, and your first thought is to apologize. But here's the Stoic challenge: to stand in that tension without immediately appeasing others. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." He reminds us that discomfort only holds power if you allow it. When you apologize reflexively, you're trying to smooth the discomfort. Instead, try resisting this urge. Stand in silence. Initially, this pause feels unbearable, as if you're breaking an unspoken rule. But in holding still, you're practicing self-control and learning to bear discomfort without crumbling under it. This doesn't mean you dismiss the impact of your actions, but rather that you give yourself a chance to respond with intention rather than impulse. Over time, standing in silence reshapes how you view yourself and the expectations of others. You start to see that discomfort is just a sensation, one that passes without your intervention. This realization builds inner strength. Your confidence grows with each instance of silence, teaching you that you don't owe explanations for merely existing or for every misstep. When you don't rush to apologize, you communicate that you're comfortable with yourself, that your presence doesn't need constant validation. Eventually, this self-assuredness becomes second nature. You move through tense moments with an unshakable calm, no longer seeking to soothe others' discomfort at the expense of your own integrity. Standing still in tension is a skill, one that builds a quiet, resilient authority within you, a foundation upon which apologies become rarer and more meaningful. Third, embracing the "so what" mindset. Imagine a situation where you stumble over your words in a group setting. Instantly, you feel the urge to apologize, to smooth over the slip. But the Stoics ask you to consider, does this minor mistake really warrant regret? Marcus Aurelius offered the perspective, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. In other words, let go of inconsequential errors that don't impact your core values. When you adopt a "so what" mindset, you free yourself from the need to justify small mistakes. At first, it may feel odd, even uncomfortable, to let an error hang in the air without an explanation. But each time you practice asking, "so what?" after a small mistake, you reinforce a stronger sense of self-worth. You become less reactive, less dependent on others' opinions. This practice doesn't mean becoming indifferent. It means reserving apologies for moments that matter. When you skip over small mishaps, you're not ignoring them but recognizing that your value isn't attached to minor imperfections. Gradually, the urge to apologize for every small slip lessens. You realize that others aren't scrutinizing you as closely as you feared. With time, the "so what" mindset fosters an inner resilience, one that separates your identity from minor stumbles. You grow into a version of yourself that doesn't flinch with every misstep. This newfound strength, rooted in self-acceptance, becomes a shield against over-apologizing. By embracing "so what" as a guiding thought, you find freedom in the knowledge that your worth stands, undiminished by the small imperfections of life. Fourth, mastering the power of choice. Imagine you're on a crowded train and someone bumps into you. The impulse to say, "sorry," springs up, though you weren't at fault. But Stoicism teaches us that we're responsible for our own choices, not others. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." True freedom lies in controlling your response, not defaulting to apologies. The next time someone brushes against you, try choosing silence. This silence is a decision, an assertion that you won't apologize for something you didn't cause. At first, it feels uncomfortable, almost rebellious. But each time you choose silence, you're exercising autonomy, reclaiming your space in a world that often pressures you to apologize needlessly. Through this choice, you start to feel a sense of ownership over your actions. You realize that apologies have weight and that, by choosing when to use them, you protect their meaning. Over time, this restraint grows into a quiet confidence. You become a person who chooses responses rather than defaulting to habits. Eventually, the impulse to apologize fades, replaced by a grounded certainty in your actions. People around you sense this shift, respecting your boundaries without you needing to explain them. This calm authority communicates that you are comfortable with who you are, no apologies required. By mastering the power of choice, you find a newfound strength, realizing that freedom lies not in avoiding conflict but in owning your reactions. You don't owe an apology for simply existing, and by embracing this, you walk through the world with a new, unshakable resolve. Fifth, redefining respect without apology. Picture yourself in a meeting, sharing a perspective, only to be met with silence. Instinctively, you feel the urge to apologize for taking up space. Epictetus taught, "Know first who you are, and then adorn yourself accordingly." Respect, in the Stoic view, isn't about pleasing others or shrinking back, but is rooted in being true to yourself, unapologetically. Hold that silence without rushing to fill it. By resisting the urge to explain yourself or backpedal, you shift from seeking external approval to respecting your voice. This isn't about arrogance. It's about honoring your perspective without bending to the silence. The first few times you practice this, it will feel unnatural. You might sense the room's discomfort or feel vulnerable. But by standing firm, you communicate a quiet assurance that your thoughts have merit, regardless of others' reactions. Over time, this confidence in your voice grows. You start to understand that respect, as the Stoics saw it, begins with how you treat your own thoughts and ideas. You don't need others to validate your words. By believing in them, you naturally project strength. Soon, your need to apologize for your opinions vanishes, replaced by a steady self-trust. This shift transforms your presence. Now, when you speak, you carry a calm conviction that draws respect from others. You're no longer anxiously monitoring their reactions, but grounded in your truth. Through this Stoic lens, you redefine respect, not as something granted by others, but as a natural outcome of owning your voice. By letting your words stand, unapologetically, you cultivate a self-assuredness that doesn't need external approval. It's a powerful respect that exists within, unwavering and whole. Sixth, silence as a shield against over-explanation. Think of the times you've explained yourself endlessly, filling every silence with reasons. In Stoicism, silence is powerful. Seneca reminds us, speech belongs half to the speaker, half to the listener. This silence, used purposefully, becomes a shield, guarding you against the compulsion to over-explain. When you feel the urge to explain yourself, pause. Resist the impulse to fill the space. Initially, it's unsettling, like a void demanding to be filled. But each time you practice restraint, you're building resilience, teaching yourself that silence isn't emptiness, it's presence. The world often pressures us to justify, to smooth every interaction with explanations. But the Stoic approach values a disciplined quiet. This silence can communicate more than words. It implies confidence, a steadiness that doesn't need external validation. Each time you let silence speak for you, you build a layer of inner strength, a quiet confidence that doesn't yield easily. It's a practice that starts small but grows, until silence becomes a form of self-respect, a shield that says, "I am enough without needing to justify." Over time, others begin to feel this shift. They see your silence not as an absence, but as authority. You no longer feel the need to fill every pause with an apology or explanation. Your silence speaks for itself, asserting that your presence alone is valid. Soon, you'll find that you're no longer a constant narrator of your own life. This silence becomes a guard against over-explanation, creating a space in which you stand, whole and complete, not requiring others' permission or validation. Through silence, you let the world adjust to you, instead of molding yourself to it. Seventh, choosing detachment over control. Consider the times you apologize to smooth things over, to bring others back into comfort, even when you aren't at fault. The Stoics taught detachment over control. Epictetus said, "Some things are in our control and others not." By letting go of what you can't control, others' feelings, reactions, you gain the power to detach from the need to apologize. The next time you feel tempted to apologize for something beyond your control, remind yourself that others' responses are not yours to manage. At first, detaching from this feels risky, as if you're releasing your grip on social harmony. But in truth, it's the opposite. By letting go, you focus on what you can control: your response, your words. Each time you choose not to apologize for others' discomfort, you're strengthening this detachment. Over time, detachment becomes empowering. You start to see that by releasing control, you actually gain it. You're no longer swayed by others' reactions, nor do you feel obligated to patch every uncomfortable situation. This is not about being cold or indifferent, it's about recognizing your limits. By accepting what you can and cannot influence, you free yourself from a never-ending cycle of apologies. Others may sense this newfound boundary, respecting you more for it. They see that you're no longer molding yourself to fit their expectations, that you stand with a calm assurance. Through detachment, you shift from constantly apologizing to living with intention. This change doesn't go unnoticed. People begin to treat you as you treat yourself, with respect and understanding. By choosing detachment, you create space for a peaceful, apology-free presence rooted in the Stoic acceptance of life's uncontrollable forces. Eighth, reclaiming your worth through self-trust. Think of the countless times you've apologized for simply being, taking up space, sharing your thoughts, or even expressing needs. But the Stoics remind us that self-worth comes from within. Epictetus taught, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Real worth is rooted in self-trust, not in others' opinions. Reclaiming your worth means breaking the habit of apologizing for your own existence. It begins with trusting that your perspective, your presence, is enough. Start by reminding yourself that each sorry for simply being you diminishes that trust. This trust isn't about arrogance. It's about owning your space, recognizing that your value is inherent, not conditional. When you feel the urge to apologize for speaking up or asserting a boundary, pause. Instead of apologizing, simply allow your words to stand. At first, it's uncomfortable. You may even feel as though you're being seen in an unflattering light. But with time, each unapologetic expression builds a small reserve of self-worth. You start to see yourself as valid, regardless of others' judgments. Soon, this sense of worth solidifies into a quiet confidence. You no longer need apologies to soften your presence. Your self-trust grows, becoming a foundation upon which you interact with the world. This isn't about shutting others out, but about creating a balanced sense of self that doesn't waver. Reclaiming your worth becomes an act of courage, rooted in Stoic wisdom. In choosing to trust yourself, you find freedom from the need to constantly explain or justify. You stand, unapologetically, embracing your worth with a calm, steady strength that requires no validation. In a world that often pushes us to apologize for simply existing, these Stoic principles give us back our voice. They transform us into people who no longer shrink, who stand resilient in silence and act with purpose. Imagine the freedom of moving through life unapologetically, with a steady self-worth that guides each step. You are more than the sum of apologies. You're the embodiment of quiet strength, an unshakable presence. If these ideas resonate, there's much more to uncover. Stick around for our next videos, each one a step toward greater self-command. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and explore our other videos on the end screen. There's a journey waiting, and you're just getting started.